Welcome to episode 165 of Stageworthy. I'm your host, Phil Rickaby. Stageworthy is a podcast about people in Canadian theatre featuring conversations with actors, directors, playwrights, and more. I was at an opening just last week of a show, and we'll be hearing that episode coming up. But this is not about the show. This is about the thing that happens afterwards. And if you've been to an opening, you know it well. It's the opening night reception. And I don't know about you, but I'm never really comfortable in those situations. I'm an introvert, and going to an event like that, which is really sort of a networking or a schmooze event where you congratulate people, but mostly you're talking to people, making connections, that sort of thing. That's what it feels like. And I'm terrible at parties anyway, so because of, being an introvert. And so I was thinking about that, and I can't be the only person who, when the show ends on the opening night, you find a reason to make a beeline for your coat and get out, rather than going to the social event, the networking, the reception afterwards. Now, I don't know if you know this, but I have another podcast with my friend Jess McCauley, and it's a podcast for introverts by introverts, and it's called The Introvert's Guide to. And every couple of weeks, we tackle a new issue that is of interest to introverts. Well, I mean us, but we hope other introverts, and we try to come up with solutions and things that actually work. So I was thinking about the reception and that sort of thing, and the party, the schmooze fest. And I was thinking about maybe doing an episode that combines those two things. So I want to talk about theater specifically, and I want to talk about going to events like that as an introvert, and maybe somehow try to find some tips, tricks, and ideas for myself, but for other people who may have difficulty at those events, who, like me, find any excuse not to go to them. And so you can look for that as I try to, I'm just sort of, it's in the early stages, but you can look for that. I like to move quickly on these things, so you can look for that in the next few weeks, I would say. I'll just throw it out there. It'll happen in the next few weeks. And if you have thoughts about that, if you are interested in hearing about that, remember you can drop me a line at on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at StageworthyPod. You can find the website where you can also leave comments and send messages at stageworthypodcast.com. And, if you want to drop me a line directly, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Phil Rickaby, and my website is philrickaby.com. And you know what? If you like the podcast, I hope that you will leave a comment or rating on Apple Podcasts, Google Music, or wherever you get your podcasts, because your ratings and comments do help new people find the show. Or you know what, I say this all the time, but it's true. Even better, if you know somebody that you think will like the show, just tell them about it, because some of my favorite podcasts, and you know what, I bet some of your favorite podcasts became your favorites because somebody you knew told you about them. My guest is Justine Christensen, who stars in Scrap Paper Theatre's production of Cannibal, which is on now until Sunday, January 20th, as part of the 2019 edition of the Next Stage Festival in Toronto. When you said that you've been working on it for a while, but how long?
I think we eased in. We started in October, though, very gradually. Yes.
Did you, when you started working on it, did you already know that you were in? I guess they announced Next Stage in the summer, right? Or early fall?
I can't remember the timeline, but it was fall.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Okay, so now I'm told that you've been involved with it from
for a
the
while,
beginning.
Yeah.
So what's, first off, why don't you start by telling me about Cannibal?
Yeah. It was, I have been involved with it for a while because my friend wrote it.
Okay.
Tom is a friend of mine from theater school. And we're still pretty new out of theater school. So I got good luck with the Fringe and have been involved in the Fringe since I graduated. 2 summers in a row. And
what shows have you done?
They were shows that I wrote.
Okay.
Yeah. They were 2 adaptations, actually, because another friend of mine from theater school, Patrick and I decided we wanted to produce together.
Okay. Awesome.
So we did that 2 summers in a row, and then Tom was also involved in a fringe show, and which is why he could apply to Next Stage. And Tom and I were always both writing plays while we were in school, and then subsequent to being graduated. And he was working on one, and he would show me drafts of it, and then he said he would apply to Next Stage, and he did, and he got in.
Nice.
That was very exciting.
Yeah. What you mentioned theater school? What was your theater school?
George Brown.
George Brown?
Yes.
Me too.
Really?
A very long time ago.
Oh wow.
Very long time ago. Back in the River Street days. The building is no longer there, but
I've heard about it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure the people still hear about that building.
Yeah. But it was kind of shocking.
It was the building was. I mean, yeah, it was something. Yeah. And how long ago did you graduate from theater school?
That was just gonna be 2 years ago in April.
Does it feel like a long time ago?
Feels like a long time ago. Yeah.
It goes like looking back, it's like, wow, was I?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And having this kind of career, it's like your life gets split up into projects you work on and almost chapters.
Yeah.
So it feels like a few chapters have gone by since graduating. Yeah.
Now, were you working? It was Patrick who wrote it.
Yes. That was No, I wrote. So Patrick and I, we still produce together. We have Let Me In as our company.
Right. Yes.
And we're going to continue to do that. The plays that we produced were written by me, and he directs them. Okay. Yeah.
And Cannibal was written by
Tom.
Yeah. So not Patrick.
No.
But you and Patrick were like. How did you find yourselves as creative partners at theater school?
That happened because I don't know if you did this project, the Vocal Mask project.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Did you guys team up in second year?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and we always had an inclination. We seemed to be interested in the same things. Patrick would push back against things that were happening in the school more than anyone, I think, in the class, and that is very much like my spirit as well. Even though people don't always know it about me. And we wanted to be subversive with as much as we could with this project, and the two of us did a project on project on vampires. We were using vampirism as a metaphor and also just literally about vampires because that's pretty interesting, and that's how Let Me In became our name. The idea of having to be let in somewhere kept coming up, and we thought that was we liked that for a theater company name because it doesn't really sound like a theater company name, and also because our goal is to make accessible theater, meaning theater that people who don't usually see theater would enjoy. Well,
that's the trick, isn't it? Like, how do you get an audience in?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what was your first, when you first were exposed to the play Cannibal, what was your reaction to it?
I was curious about what Bridget would look like in particular.
Okay.
I guess I always had a lens on her before I knew I would play her. I thought there have been a few. I'm thinking of a few different kind of. There's this thriller, women in the lead of these like thriller genre films and plays right now, and it sort of feels like it's in that sort of umbrella, the play.
Yeah,
where we're trying to look at women in a more nuanced way, and I was curious about what she would look like and behave like. Also, I think this play will appeal to people who aren't used to seeing, in terms of the vernacular. Tom's dialogue is very clever and it moves very fast. I think like film audiences will like it.
Sure. Yeah. When you say that you weren't sure how Bridget would look, what was she like in the early draft that she's not like how has she changed over time?
I think Tom hasn't shied away from ugly moments. People saying ugly things to each other when they're very bound to each other. Bridget and Liza, who is her best friend in the play, and they're basically their only family to each other because they met at 13 and they were both orphans at the time. So they're completely dependent on each other and also have a lot of anger towards each other, and the reasons for that become obvious throughout the play. Especially Bridget to Liza. There's a lot of resentment, and it's this in a way like a family drama between them and then the other the men in their lives who are involved in this play. But the the circumstances are not what you expect.
But the play is about. What can you like? What is the play about?
Well,
Can you give me a little bit about
when
that?
I describe it to people, I usually start by saying Bridget, who I'm playing, has written a play about her son who was kidnapped 4 years prior. So she's written a play to deal with it. That's her way of dealing with it. And the play starts just before her ex-husband comes back and confronts her and kind of says, "What the fuck? Why the fuck would you write this about our son?" Yeah. So it becomes obvious that they dealt with the grief of that in very different ways and split up and all that. And at the time, Liza's being Bridget's best friend and also her agent, actually, who like got this play up and running because Bridget was an author before that. She's still around, and Bridget is also seeing someone who's an actor in her play, Wyatt. So it's pretty. They're like it's quite close quarters, complicated dynamics, right? And the play all happens in Bridget's apartment. Okay. So it's kind of we kind of call it Greek in the way that a lot of the events of the play happened already, or happen off stage, or are going to happen. Right. But we see the aftermath in the apartment.
Is that difficult since everything is happening over there and now we're just reacting to it?
Yes.
Does that take away some of the? It feels like that would take away some of the active quality to it, but. How do you feel? Like, does it, or how do you feel about that?
I've been thinking about that. Sometimes, yes, I go, oh, I would love to see what we're talking about. I would love to see that on the stage. But at the same time, I'm really interested in what happens between people. That when I write too, it's all about situations between people, relationship, as opposed to crazy shit happening. Yeah. So,
now, have you always written?
Yeah.
Do you remember do you remember a time when you started writing?
Oh, that's a great question. I started journaling when I was probably 8, and then I remember I took a bit of a hiatus because I was terrified people would see what I wrote. It was a combination of like Dear Diary and just fiction. Sure. And then when I was in grade 8, I remember getting really angry sometime, and I just pulled a notebook and started writing. And since then, I've been writing. I would write again. Sometimes it's journalistic, recording something that seems important, or it'll be fiction right away.
When did you start writing plays?
When I was 15. Okay. And then since I've been 15, I've written at least one play a year. Okay.
What was it that drove you to write a play?
I was actually in an arts program in high school. I was very fortunate. I studied, like, I've been studying theater since I was 14 in one institution or another. That was high school, but still very special program. And yeah, I started writing a play when I was 15. It was for a class, actually. And then, I just had, I love that form. Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
Had you seen a lot of plays before that?
Not really. No? Okay. No one in my family is in the theater at all. We saw a few musicals when I was a kid. It was in high school that I started seeing theater. And my teachers were really into absurdist stuff. Okay. And Albee, Ionesco. So that was my first exposure to theater, not musical theater. Right. And I just thought, oh my God, like that at 15, you're starting to have existential ideas. It was just perfect. Yeah. Just really latched onto that.
So how did somebody who wasn't exposed to a lot of theater end up as an actor?
I think because it was sort of pure. Writing was always kind of my escape, and more than writing, like playing pretend. I was always the kid that was like, let's play Harry Potter again. Like, let's put on this. I was the kid who never wanted to stop playing pretend. Right. Yeah. And it was always an inclination. I'm fairly, I can be very introverted as well. So it wasn't obvious for a while. Even though I was in the arts high school program, my family's very science-based. It was always, we're going to go into something much more practical than that. But it never went away. It really
was it difficult to convince them that you were serious about not going into something more quote-unquote practical?
Yeah. And then at some point, I went to university for a year, and I was just doing theater on the side all the time. And I went, I had enough confidence in myself that it was my strongest inclination that I thought, okay, I'm just going to go for it.
Was that a difficult conversation with your family?
It was kind of awkward. Yeah, I was shy about it. I think I tried to do it a few times in a few different ways. But eventually, now, I mean, they love seeing the things I'm in. Yeah. It is sort of my own thing still. Yeah. So that I think that's why. It's precious, and now I'm enjoying, since I've been out of school, looking at it more like a job too. Yeah. Being more practical about it.
Yeah. Do you remember what it was that drew you to theater in the first place? Like what? Did you do a play in school? Did you, like, how did you end up knowing that it was a thing?
Yeah, that's a great question. It was in grade 3. My teacher would do improv with us as a reward. We had we did like improv team stuff. And now I want to get more into improv because I haven't done it for a while, but I just, again, was like, let's never stop doing this. I loved it. Just making people laugh too.
Yeah, yeah. So at a certain point, when did it become apparent to you that this is what you had to do? Was it in university, or was there anything before that made you think that it was something you had to do?
I think in high school the seed was planted at some point. In grade 11 in particular, I had an English teacher who changed my life, and a drama teacher who also changed my life. And at one point he told me, you have to do this. You're gonna be in theater for your whole life.
Yeah.
And I didn't do it because of him, but it was like he published it in me.
Yeah. Where did you grow up?
In Toronto. In North York. Toronto. Okay. Yeah. So it's home.
Yeah. Did you? Because, when I was in theater school, when I was in high school, and it came time for, to sit with the guidance counselor, and the guidance counselor would try to help you figure out what it is that you wanted to do. And I said that I wanted to go into theater. They didn't know what to do with that, Yeah. There was a long silence where their lips got really thin, and they were like, oh, I don't know what to do on that. So that was sort of... they were sort of like left on their own because it was, or I was left on my own because they had no resources for that. It sounds like you had a lot of support in high school to get there.
I was in this arts program, yes.
Yeah.
Funny enough, I don't think really anyone from my class went into arts except one other guy. He's still an actor. It was a very academic school other than the arts program. Okay. So a lot of people ended up going, they're going to become lawyers now.
Right.
So, and even when I was in high school with my guidance counselor, I was going to university. I was careful with who I told that was my dream too.
Okay.
But I think there was always a belief that I would get there one way or another.
Were you careful because you're worried about who might get back to your parents about it, or?
And just in terms of raining on my parade,
Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah.
No, I can be pretty, quietly determined about things.
Yeah. You mentioned being a little bit introverted, which I don't think it's common in performers, but it's not what people think of about performers.
Yeah.
Everybody thinks that performers are going to be outgoing and extroverted, and I don't think I've really met any of those.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you ever try to fight being an introvert and sort of as though that was the wrong thing to be?
Yeah. And even now in a rehearsal process, when I start to feel shy or just I can't talk to anyone after or before, sort of, I can be hard on myself about it and go, are you even, what, are you an actor?
Yeah.
But when I'm doing it, it feels right and I love it. And it just can be really, I think it's just the vulnerability of it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I always find rehearsal is fine. It's socializing after that where I'm just done.
Yeah. Same. Yeah.
Or if I go to an opening night.
Oh my God! Yes. Oh wow!
All of that stuff is if I stay, I feel like I'm just standing at a table, sort of doing the nod, the awkward nod, where yes, I'm agreeing with whatever that person is saying, and I never know how to deal. So I often just, if I go to an opening, show ends.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I totally get it. Yes. It's hard. It feels like, it feels like it's not for you to be there anymore. Being on stage or being the writer, I don't even want anyone to think about me. They can have their own experience of the thing and carry it out with them, but it's not. Yeah.
It's a little bit easier if you're the writer in the show. If you're just an audience member, media or whatever, and you're there, if you're just sort of peripheral to the show, that's even worse. But it's hard being an introvert and actually accepting compliments or comments.
Which is, I don't understand what that is.
Yeah, I know.
But sometimes it's just not mortifying, but no, not mortifying. No. Of course, it's beautiful when people want to tell you that they were enjoying. That's also part of the whole thing, the exchange, but sometimes I just like people to have their own experience. I don't know. There's something about it.
I don't know what it is. I think it might just be because after a show, you're pretty open.
Yeah.
Especially if you've been performing, you're kind of open. So all of those receptors are really sensitive to all the things around you. And I think there's like, when people start complimenting you, you're like, okay, so this is the first of a bunch of people who may speak to me this evening, and it starts to get really, really trying.
Right.
I practiced saying thank you at one point.
Yep.
So that it was genuine.
Yep.
Or like I practiced saying a genuine thank you after. Because I felt like I was like totally awkward and sounding disingenuous when people would talk about the show after. Did you ever do anything like that?
Yeah, like I think the situation for me is that I feel like they say something beautiful and I love this about it. I feel like I need to give them as much back, you know?
Yeah.
It's like you're still trying to be a good scene partner or something. Even though, so just to say thank you doesn't always feel like enough, but that's really all you have to say.
That is all you have to say,
Receive.
But there's a certain awkwardness that where you almost try to engage in the wrong way, where you're like, yes, it was beautiful. No, it was, of course, no, it was a very difficult scene it was very, you start running off like that. So, yeah, I was doing a lot of that early on until I think I don't even know how it came about, but I just started like practicing. Does this thank you sound genuine? And that just became my go-to like sound. And if anybody's like sees me after a show and hears it a few times, they'll know that, oh, that's the rehearsed one. It's all I can do.
Yeah. Yep. You're right. Totally. Because you're open.
Yeah.
That vulnerability, dipping in and out of that in the rehearsal and the show, that is the, I think I'm discovering that's the big thing to learn for yourself as a performer. I
do feel like it's one thing to do in a rehearsal hall. Because that's a safe space and everybody's there together and it's okay to fail and it's okay to experiment and it's a safe space. It's another thing when it's the people who are not in the show. Because they weren't there on that journey. They're not quite as safe as the people in the rehearsal hall. Audiences are people you don't know.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yep.
You've done 2 fringes so far? How do you navigate the fringe tent? Or do you?
Great question. The first summer, it was so much fun. I knew a whole bunch of people who were in the fringe, so I would go there and see someone I knew. It was great. For some reason, it felt really comfortable.
Yeah,
that time. I think the weather also that summer was really great. There were so many of these sunny days, and people were just in a great mood. And then the fringe tent last year, I didn't end up going a lot. I was just the writer on the play last year. The summer before, I had been a performer, so I just felt even more involved. In terms of navigating it, sometimes I go in, and if it was after a show, I would just not even look around very much. Sort of like get the drink, find a spot, and then see if someone wants to talk and comes up, that's great. But sometimes I don't know. Yeah, no, I'm the person who goes to the way I am at a party. I like go and I'll sort of sit in a corner or something and sort of like look at people. Because, I don't mind if somebody comes over, but it's that, I can't get up and talk to them. That engaging. And then when you catch someone's eye from way across the thing and there's this sort of, who's going to move? Are you going to come over here? Because I'm kind of stuck here, Yeah, what I do is I find a spot, it matters to me where I'm sitting, probably close to a wall, somewhat close to a wall, and somewhere with, and then just see what happens. Yeah, it's certainly good to have it's only really terrible if you can't find a seat. Yeah, yep. And then you're standing awkwardly instead of... You can sort of sit awkwardly and nobody really notices, but standing awkwardly is a particular thing. Yes, yep. Did you ever think of your introversion as a barrier to this career? Just because sometimes it can lead to inward negativity. If there's a bit of a balance. It's nice to be somewhat private and then but receptive, I think. Yeah. There's a place I find where I feel good, but if it dips in towards being self-conscious, then that's no good. What do you do when that happens? I've started to do more meditation practices like that just put me in my body more. That's good. Because I think the negativity would come from a very intellectual place. Yes. Yeah. So if you just feel, that your heart's beating, that you're okay, that helps actually. Okay. Yeah. All right. That's good. That's good. So
So coming from a family that is not in the arts, do you find yourself translating the arts for them
a little bit? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And because they've come to plays, they sort of get it, especially the fringe infrastructure. Yeah. They do. Yeah, but sometimes I don't bring up theater with them. If they ask me something, then great. I don't really bring up what I do too much with my family. I'd be happy if they ask questions, but...
Does that feel weird to you? Or is that just because they don't understand it?
Yeah, it's not really weird. Now that I'm out of school and doing more film and TV as well, that's the kind of stuff that I get asked more about. Like, my parents literally see me on TV in a commercial, and then they can pass on to their friends, and like they know what that is. That's pretty
Do they ever call you, having seen you on something, to like just let you know that they saw you?
Yeah, it's very sweet. Yeah, my dad sent me a photo of me in a commercial the other day. Yeah.
Adorable.
Yes, very nice.
Was when you went to university?
Yes.
Did you finish university before going to George Brown, or did you?
No. I thought I might. While I was there, I even thought I could stay in an academic area. I could see myself being a professor or something like that. Yeah. I really had a very strong academic inclination at that time, and still read a lot. Like, that is kind of my favorite pastime still. Yeah. But I was just doing theater on the side all the time. So when I got into George Brown, I decided to go with that.
Was there any other schools that you looked at, or was it just George Brown?
NTS.
NTS.
That was the one that.
Okay.
Yeah, I wanted to go to NTS. I really did.
For a lot of people, I think it comes down to the two.
Yeah. And Ryerson is a big one. I actually didn't get asked. I didn't even get a call back for Ryerson. So the decision was easy because I got into Humber as well. But anyway, George Brown, I really liked the Young Center. I'd gone to, actually in high school, that was where I went to see plays. Soul Pepper. Yeah. That was my kind of like education in theater, seeing their stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. It was, I had the choice between Ryerson and George Brown.
Yeah.
I got into both. And so it was like, which one do I choose?
Yep.
And some of the, there were two of the students who were in second year, I think, at the time, or they had just finished first year. They were talking about the courses, and they told me that all of the teachers were working actors or were in the theater. And I was like, well, shit. That kind of sold me on the program.
Yeah. Something about the George Brown program, someone was telling me that they had this kind of theory about how the George Brown program and even the system of how they let go of people every semester makes you really opportunistic. And I've seen a lot of George Brown folks do all kinds of be actors and producers and a whole bunch of things.
Yeah.
Once they graduate from that program.
Well, it certainly makes you like you have to go after everything.
Yeah.
I still have mixed feelings about the whole letting people go.
For sure.
Thing.
Yes.
Like I sort of have this idea, like, what is your purpose for letting somebody go? Is it because you don't think they're going to make it? If so, how dare you?
Yeah.
Like, are they not gelling with the program? If so, maybe let them I think that a lot of people would self like edit or remove themselves given the opportunity rather than being asked to leave. But
it's disconcerting how subjective it is.
Yeah. I always found that, especially after so you're in first year and everything's great leading up to that first Christmas, and then somebody gets cut. Yep. Or a few people get cut. And after that, I think a lot of us were just afraid all the time. Yeah. Like, am I going to do the wrong thing?
Yep. I was looking back at some journals from my first year, and I had good grades and felt like I had a pretty good. I didn't have any problems with any of the faculty, but I was even in my writing, I was terrified of getting cut all the time.
Yeah. They really keep you on edge that way.
Yeah.
And because you saw people, and some of the people maybe they were you don't even know why they were cut.
Yep.
Because I really think that being afraid is a bad environment for creativity.
Yeah. Absolutely.
They're telling you, oh, this is where, you're free to fail. And then you're like, but it doesn't look like it.
Yeah. And then there's this whole complex you develop where you go, why aren't I freer? What's wrong with me?
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's like the air is cold,
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I actually spent a good 10 years after theater school when I realized I was still trying to impress the head of acting. You know?
Yeah.
Even though they didn't necessarily come to anything, I was like trying to be like, I don't know what I was trying to do, but I was acting as though I was still in theater school, and it took a long time to let that go. Mm-hmm. So I guess that sort of shows how deep the theater school complex goes.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm not far from it at all. I find it hard to be objective about theater school and the experiences.
Yeah.
The other day, people were talking about theater school and their experiences at different places, and I kind of said, I haven't even had enough time out to really reflect on it.
It takes a while.
Yeah.
It takes a while. No, just to get back to Cannibal for a second. When you've seen this like from its earliest drafts.
Yeah.
And when you're looking at that, now you're saying that you eased into rehearsal. Mm-hmm. How did easing into rehearsal look like for this?
Well, the play, even from its earliest drafts, a lot of it is fundamentally the same. There were a few twists and turns in the story that changed. Tom wasn't sure how he wanted it to end for a while. And then, so in terms of, Tom had me read it a few times, so I was already familiar with all the text. Mm-hmm. I read for both Liza and Bridget in different like early readings that he had just to hear the play. And then we would have, I think early on in the process, we had 1 or 2 rehearsals a week. And then gradually we ramped it up. Yeah. We had, Courtney, who's directing it, was working on, so many projects this fall.
Oh, I know. She's been everywhere this year.
Yeah. So partially it was to give her some breathing room. And then also Michael, who's in the play, was working on What I Call Her at the beginning at Crow's Theatre at the beginning of our process. So both of them had other stuff going on. That was quite involved for them. Yeah. So that was part of the reason too. But that was really nice. Also for me, because just learning a whole bunch of text, I love to be able to do it over, like I felt very lucky to be able to learn it kind of gradually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. When, you mentioned that you read both characters.
Yeah.
At any point, did you get an affinity for Bridget? Like, when did you start to feel like you might want to play Bridget?
Yeah. I think Tom had me read for Liza because it was countercasting me.
Okay.
Yeah, at theater school, and then I just get cast as like more of a Bridget type a lot, where it's someone who has a lot of external, maybe calm, and a lot of internal vulnerability and fire. And Liza is more, she's a real extrovert. So I think he wanted to see me play that, and then, but then he kind of went, but I can't see anyone but you play Bridget. So I ended up reading for Bridget in another version, and he asked me to play her.
Had you felt that affinity, or was that something that he was seeing?
There are, that's a good question. I think he saw that, and for me, my curiosity about what it would look like to see her played was also partially me going, how would I play this? Yeah.
As you're starting to delve into this, and next stage is coming up pretty soon. Mm-hmm. As we record this, pretty soon it'll be like basically on us when this airs.
Yeah.
What's your favorite part about this play?
I just got Liza and Bridget in my head, and finding I didn't know it at first, but the last couple of rehearsals, their relationship as sisters is really important in this play. And there's kind of a surprising resolution they come to together by the end of the play that I didn't even know that it was there on the page. But playing it, I go, this is kind of the love story of the play in a way. So finding that was been pretty beautiful. Yeah. But playing with all the actors that are in the show, they all have very different energies, and it's been really, really satisfying, and I've learned a lot acting with all of them.
Nice. Mm-hmm. You mentioned like the two women in the play, how they're like sisters. Mm-hmm. Did you have a sister growing up?
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And your sister is like in academia, science?
She's in an environmental studies, kind of more physical. She's very cool. She does all kinds of stuff.
Did you get along with your sister already?
Yeah. She's a little sister. So.
Oh yeah? Yeah. Were you guys really close?
Yes.
Yeah? Nice. Nice. How did that inform, or did that at all inform the way that the two women are interacting in this play?
That's interesting. A very different relationship for sure. Yeah. I think Liza's younger in the play as well, but we switch roles a lot. Sometimes I almost have a mothering kind of role with her. That's a role I take on a bit. Best friends, sisters. But Bridget can be really hard on everyone who's around her. Especially Liza, actually, which, that's in a lot of like classical plays too, like these family dramas where people can be horrible to each other, just like, in real families too, but August Osage County, and people just like ripping into each other.
Sure.
So they're very, very honest with each other in that way.
Okay. Yeah. I had a thought and it went away.
Sisters.
Yeah,
that is the worst.
It's interesting because the idea of writing about a tragedy as a way for catharsis, that's not uncommon in this world, in both novel and theater, that sort of thing. Have you found yourself doing that at all? Do you put yourself into the things that you write, or is it like only people who really know you, if they were to dig through, they might find you in it?
I think some of the earlier stuff I wrote was probably more obviously linked to stuff that was going on. Because, partially that's always there. Yeah. You're working through something. For me at least. Something, even with the adaptations I've written, it's something that I go, or a few elements that I go, what is that? Like, I just need to explore it more. Or else I'll get an idea for a character who's in a particular kind of situation, and I go, what is that? Yeah. Usually it's not really to get somewhere in particular. It's just to represent that situation.
Have you, when you're exploring that, have you ever been really overt about what the issue is, or is it like hidden behind layers?
I think I think sometimes I don't mean to be, mysterious or clever or no, but I like to, I think I look at the world I see a lot of poetry in things, in little things and little moments between people. So that's usually what I use to frame these situations. Like I can be kind of melancholic about things, but there's just so much beauty in human interaction, and I think I'm fundamentally optimistic about people.
Okay, that's good. When I ask because when I wrote my solo play, The Commandment, I was dealing with some serious stuff. So I was trying for catharsis there. However, it's not written in again, people wouldn't know unless they know me what it's about. And yet other people they'll write stuff which is very overt and everybody knows that it's about them. There's very different ways to approach that.
I think what I do is I try to borrow from a whole bunch of different places, so it becomes a little less obvious.
Yeah.
But just every day, there's just so much inspiration.
Yeah. Are you just in terms of finding that everyday inspiration? Are you a headphones in person or a headphones out person?
Usually, I have those Marshall headphones. I put them on, and sometimes what I do is I just pull one back, so one of my ears is exposed to the world, and then one of them has music on. That's my favorite.
I find as an introvert, sometimes the headphones are my coping mechanism. Yeah. If I'm riding a crowded subway or something like that, it's just the sounds of everybody else just becomes too much. And yet, sometimes as a writer, I'm sort of berating myself that I should be listening to the world and things like that. It's hard to find the balance between the two sometimes.
Yes, agreed.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's just too much.
Yeah.
Or there's something, I don't know if you find this, there's something in my head, a thought I have to work through, and actually music helps with that. Because for me, I actually write with music playing often.
What kind of music? Because I write with music, but it can't have lyrics in it.
Usually it does have lyrics for me. And I don't hear them. It's just, I don't know. I don't know what it is.
Interesting. Because for me, if there are lyrics, that's what I listen to. I can't passively listen if there are lyrics.
Yes.
Which is a strange thing.
So sort of like classical music, or what kind of music?
Like I have all kinds of playlists of different things: modern classical, old classical. Sometimes the Vitamin String Quartet is a great source of violin covers of modern songs. That'll just sort of be there. So I have all kinds of writing playlists that are just like different kinds of instrumental music. Sometimes movie soundtracks, unless I've seen the movie,
right?
Because then I picture what happened in the movie. And that's bad.
Yeah, no, that could be confusing.
Yeah. So I try to like, if as soon as I've seen a movie, that can't be a writing playlist. But until then, because there can be anything in that music.
Yeah,
that's
true.
I didn't ask about the fringe shows that you did previously. So what was the one that you were in?
That was the first summer just out of theater school, and it was an adaptation of Chekhov's untitled play. Platonov is what it's sometimes called. And Patrick and I at that time still are interested in just what we call queering plays. Okay. So it's partially gender swapped, just more just kind of experimenting with being more gender fluid, and so 6 of the characters ended up being gender swapped, and I played the lead in that show actually, which was too many jobs, but that character was it was something that it felt right for me to play.
Well, early in one's self-producing career, you usually make that mistake of doing too many jobs.
I can do everything. Yeah.
Sure, I can write, produce, and act in it. You know.
That was it.
But I mean, what did you learn from that?
Well,
aside from it's too much.
Also that it's possible. Yeah. It was possible. Partially because we were just like fresh out of theater school and everyone wanted to do it, and everyone like just was so happy to have that to work on. And it was also a real passion project. The play was pretty cool, I think. There wasn't, it was a fringe show. It was messy and put together. We put it together in different like basement rehearsal spaces, and in a fairly expedited rehearsal process, but there were things we were exploring there that mattered to us and that people responded to.
Nice.
Yeah. Just social, putting social politics on a stage, but in like a fun way.
Yeah. And what was the one from this past summer?
That was a version. So I had, after writing that one, the adaptation of that Chekhov play, I wanted to do The Seagull. I don't remember exactly how it started, but I wanted to adapt The Seagull, which is a much more well-known play. And also a movie came out of it at around the same time.
Okay, yeah.
It wasn't very good. Anyway, so I got ideas for that, and I wrote that right after we closed the Fringe show, basically, that summer, the first Fringe show. And then I also started to get ideas for a Vanya adaptation, which I'm working on now. Okay. We might do it in the summer. Nice. I'm not sure yet. But yeah, so it was a Seagull adaptation with 6 people. Okay. So the cast of 15 reduced to 6 and an hour long.
What's your process of adapting? Like, how do you go about adapting these plays, especially ones that are relatively well known?
Yeah, with The Seagull, I mean, I really shortened that story. It really just revolved around 6 characters in certain situations of that play, and I had seen The Seagull enough that I just started to write my versions of those scenes. Again, some characters were gender swapped, and I sort of took liberties with where the story went a little bit. So it was really just like reimagining some of those dynamics, but in a contemporary setting. Yeah.
How much did you rely on the source material?
Or I hardly went back to it. Yeah. A little bit at the start. Yeah. Chekhov, just something, the situations between people, some of those relationships are so contemporary. And the plays are only 100 years old.
Yeah. It's so hard because I think that a lot of modern people don't know what to make of Chekhov.
Yeah.
Especially when people are like, well, Chekhov always said that his plays were comedies. And then you look at the play and you're like, this is a comedy.
But they are.
It's sometimes hard to see it, right?
Yeah.
Because it's very Russian.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you find... Are you looking at them as comedies, or are you looking at them in the tragic stories? Or both?
Yeah, like dark comedies. Like, we're all going to die anyway. That sort of attitude to me is very, I'm not even a millennial. I'm the next one, whatever generation. I don't remember.
They just lumps millennials into everything.
Yeah, but I would be called a millennial by most people. But anyway, it's very much the attitude of people my age, where there's sort of just a taste of hopelessness about things.
Yeah.
Which is how I read those Chekhov characters.
Yeah. What interests you about Vanya?
Ooh, not much happens in that play. There are just a few characters that I think are beautiful, like the doctor character, the Yelena character. She's sort of just idle. She's there, and everyone loves her, and she's not doing anything. And Vanya as a character too interests me. And then the young woman who is in love with the doctor. So those are the four who are going to be in the Vanya adaptation I write. Just the four of them. I think all four of them as characters I love. I don't really know who they all are yet because I'm really just like maybe a fourth of the way through writing this, and it's coming together in pieces. But it's really, really very much about those people.
What I mean, when you're still early stages in this. What's the process of deciding who's going to be in it and how you're going to tell their stories? And what's the writing
casting
process?
it?
No, just like the writing process.
I can't remember how. Oh, actually, during Bird Killer, which was the Seagull adaptation, I remember before going to see the play, sitting in a cafe, and I started thinking about Vanya and just writing all the combinations and even what the genders could be of these characters and what it would do for. And I had like 10, or maybe less, but like 8 different versions of how the characters kind of fit together. Because I'm interested in what it means if this character is still a man and this character is also a man, and just what it would do in terms of gender politics right now.
What is it that draws you to queering these plays? If that's not too personal a question, I'm just curious about that.
Yeah, that's something Patrick and I are both really interested in and have been for since knowing each other. Our first project together was a version of Hamlet where we just took Hamlet and Ophelia's text out and then wrote in some in between. We made like a play about the relationship, and Patrick played Ophelia and I played Hamlet. I've been playing like male roles a lot since graduating, and Patrick really wanted to play Ophelia, explore that feminine archetype. Back to your question. Yeah, it just seemed like something. If we're going to adapt stuff. That seems like a useful thing to do with those classical plays right now, because we can recognize the stories and we realize stuff about the original. Maybe it was like, oh, Hamlet was an asshole. I didn't notice because Hamlet was a guy, but when Hamlet's a woman, like, not to be, extreme, but kind of like that's literally what someone said when they saw our play. They're like, I didn't know Ophelia, like Hamlet was so hard on Ophelia.
Interesting.
It's the same words, but just having me say it to Patrick. Yeah.
Interesting.
So that, and then when we heard that, we went, oh, that's pretty interesting. Let's do that more. And it's not in a way that's shaming anyone, just raising questions.
Yeah. Interesting. Interesting. Is there something about the Cannibal? And I'm super curious about why it's called the Cannibal, but I'm not asking about that because I assume that's
it will be answered.
That will be answered in the play. Is there something that you're most looking forward to when you get to present it to an audience?
I'm really wondering when they're going to laugh, because a lot of it is quite funny. All the characters have really funny moments. But there's also just so much stuff that's happening that is awful. Like awful between people and situationally. And the stakes are extreme. Yeah. So yeah, it really is this like Greek circumstances met with very contemporary setting.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for doing this. It's been great.
Thank you, Phil. Thanks.
This has been a Homebody Productions production.